Hello and welcome to Network News. Today we're talking about Grand Central, as they've been in the news quite a lot lately because of their ambitious plans to grow their operations over the next few years. Owned by Arriva, Grand Central is an open access operator in the UK, running intercity services along the East Coast Main Line, one from London to Bradford and another from London to Sunderland. Because it's an open access operator, it receives no support from the government and has to apply to the Office of Rail and Road for the rights to operate its services along the National Rail network. Previously, the right to operate its services to Bradford and Sunderland was set to expire in December 2027, but have now been extended through to December 2038. As a result of this, Grand Central have announced they're procuring a new fleet of 9 5-car tri-mode trains to replace its existing fleet of diesel Class 180s and 221s. The contract is worth about £300 million and will see an increase in seating capacity of 20%, as well as a reduction in fuel costs by 30%. This is because of the train's tri-mode capabilities, meaning it can operate on conventional overhead wires, battery power or diesel mode. This is necessary because whilst the trains will spend the majority of their time on the electrified East Coast Main Line, the branches to Sunderland and Bradford are still yet to receive wires. By using battery hybrid trains, the company is able to cut emissions and increase the efficiency of its operation. The trains themselves will be manufactured by Hitachi at its Newton Aycliffe factory in County Durham and are expected to enter service in 2028 under a 10-year leasing agreement from Angel Trains. Whilst the order initially consists of 9 trains, there is an option to increase this further if Grand Central's applications to run increased services are granted. So let's talk about some of those proposed services now. The first of these is fairly simple, an additional 2 return services a day between London and Bradford, expanding its existing operations along this route. They have also applied to run an early morning and late evening return service between London and York, and for some trains to start calling at Seaham between Sunderland and Hartlepool. These additional services would be relatively minor changes, and as such I think they're fairly likely to happen. Now let's talk about some of the more ambitious proposals. The first of these was unveiled on the 21st of March 2025 and is a plan to run direct trains between London and Cleethorpes for the first time in more than 30 years. If approved, this service would provide 775,000 additional seats annually and has been estimated to boost the economy of the region served by up to £30 million a year. There would be 4 return services a day between Cleethorpes and London, with intermediate stops at Grimsby, Heyborough and Scunthorpe, after which it would join with an existing Grand Central service from Bradford at Doncaster, before running as a double-length unit the rest of the way to King's Cross. By doing this, it means they get to serve additional destinations from London without taking any extra paths on the busy East Coast Main Line. This makes it much more likely to be approved, and Grand Central is hoping the service can begin as early as December 2026. This would be before their new trains have had a chance to enter service, so I imagine that it would be operated either with some Class 221s or with their existing fleet of 180s, or maybe both. Finally, let's talk about their most ambitious proposal, which was unveiled last week on Friday the 25th of April. This is for a new service running 5 times per day in each direction between Newcastle and Brighton via Sheffield, Birmingham, Oxford, Reading and Gatwick Airport, as well as other intermediate stations which you can see on screen now. This would be their longest route yet and establish the first direct route between Brighton and Newcastle, though it is worth noting that this proposal is similar to a previous cross-country service which ran between Brighton and Manchester until 2008. Arriva is hoping that this service could also be up and running by December 2026, which, again, would be before their new trains have entered service. It's not clear, therefore, which trains would end up operating the new route, but according to the press release, each train would have a capacity for 300 passengers, luggage space for airport travellers, onboard catering, as well as Wi-Fi and charging points. I therefore think that the trains most likely to operate the service would be Class 222s, albeit reconfigured to be 6 cars long. I say this because, hopefully by 2026, they will have been replaced by the new Class 810s, and therefore will be looking for a new home. The trains are still only about 20 years old, and have recently had their seats refurbished, making them an attractive proposition for many open access operators. Currently, a 5-car Class 222 has a seating capacity of 252 seats, whilst a 7-car unit has a capacity of 360 seats, so you can see how it would make sense that a 6-car unit would have about 300. How likely do I think this application is to happen though? Well, I think the fact that it avoids London holds it in good stead, as there's currently a multitude of open access operators competing for the right to operate the busy intercity routes into London. However, the proposed service does still make use of some very congested stretches of railway, notably the Brighton Main Line, the East Coast Main Line, and the approaches to Birmingham New Street. The only way I could see it getting around these issues is if it slots in very closely with existing services. For example, the Gatwick Express also runs between Gatwick Airport and Brighton, stopping only at Haywards Heath. So slotting in either 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after one of these services could reduce its impact on other services using the line, albeit at the risk of reducing reliability from having services running so close together. Because of these concerns, I think that even if the service is approved eventually, it's unlikely to start by 2026, so that they have an opportunity to work out these potential issues. I think it's no coincidence that the route Aruba have applied for here has significant overlap with two of the routes it currently operates under the cross-country franchise, namely the section between Newcastle and Birmingham, and between Birmingham and Reading. It follows a pattern of train operators applying for open access paths along routes they currently hold franchises for, such as First Group's Lumo applying for paths to Cardiff, Bristol, Carmarthen, Paignton and Manchester, overlapping with its current Great Western Railway and Avanti West Coast franchises. It seems pretty clear to me that these operators are applying for these paths so that they can continue to take a share of the revenue after their existing franchises are nationalised. With that said, I'm not entirely opposed to the concept of open access, and think the Grand Central's application to run services to Cleethorpes also seems like a very good idea to make the most of their existing paths along the East Coast Main Line, allowing them to double the capacity of their trains between London and Doncaster before they split and go their separate ways. I wonder if they would consider a similar operation to boost capacity on its line to Sunderland, with services splitting at Eaglescliffe to serve Middlesbrough, Redcar and Saltburn. Food for thought. As for the new trains, I'm sure they'll come as a welcome improvement for passengers of Grand Central. Despite refurbishment works, the Class 180s did feel notably quite dated when I last went for a ride on them, especially when compared to the sleek Hitachi trains operating most other long-distance services along the East Coast Main Line. Whilst I'm aware that I've spoken quite favourably about Grand Central's applications so far, I do also have quite a lot of concerns about the potential for revenue abstraction and negative impacts on reliability. For example, should the Newcastle to Brighton train be approved, it could mean that a delay in Sheffield could ripple across the network and end up causing delays at Gatwick Airport. Clearly, a lot of assessment will need to be done into the potential repercussions of these proposed new services before a decision is made. But I'll be here to provide any major updates on these proposals going forward, so make sure you're subscribed to Network News so that you don't miss future updates like this. It's certainly an interesting time for the industry, and I look forward to bringing you major developments as they emerge over the next few years. But what are your thoughts on Grand Central's proposed expansions? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, I'm going to say thank you for watching, and cheerio.